Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. So it's a little bit strange that I'm doing a sketchbook video for Saturday's video rather than a Monday video, but the thing that I wanted to film for this week didn't really go as planned, so I'm going to be bumping Monday's video till today. So hopefully that's okay, and then Monday we'll do something a little bit different, maybe watercolors or something. But as you can see, I have a sketch already done in my sketchbook of Charlotte from Genshin Impact because I haven't really drawn her at all. So the sketch is done with red lead, which is the Uni Nano Dia lead in the color red. And then for line art, I am going to be using the Magicfly art Fineliners, which is basically a water-based marker that is dual-ended. So we're going to be using the Fineliner side right here. So because we are going to be working with alcohol markers, I knew that my water-based markers were actually going to be a good choice for the line work for today. I didn't really want to go through a bunch of my Fineliners to find which ones wouldn't smudge a lot with this kind of, I guess, like with the paper combination alongside with the markers, because I don't use alcohol markers too often for me to remember what is more suitable on this paper and which won't like smudge and bleed when I lay down a lot of my lighter colors or doing a lot larger areas, especially for the face. Because I usually don't do a lot of alcohol markers for, I guess, like what I consider the main videos whenever I do uploads, I'll try my best to explain as much as I can. So I decided to use a more warmer colored brown that's not too light, but it's also not like super dark, so that we can have a bit of a softer look for the entire piece, just because I was going to actually pick certain markers and try to match them as close as I could to the different areas. Like I would use maybe more of a orangey red for the face, and maybe kind of like a dark blue, darkish green for her eyes. I could use brown for a lot of her hair, and then maybe black to help darken things up, or use it for some of the other, I guess, like darker areas or accessories that are actually more gray and black in her outfit. But I decided that I wasn't going to do that because it would be too confusing, and I feel like I would have probably needed to do a lot more refining a little bit later for the line work for it to stand out. So instead, I'm going to be consistently inking everything just with the kind of reddish brown that I decided to choose to use for basically the entirety of the line work here. So my kind of choice on how I do the line work for today is a little bit different, I guess. I did a combination of just like how I usually ink, which is I would do more or less how thick the line could be made with the pen, and then after that I'll go back in and darken some of the corners or some of the lines that touch to kind of create that line width variation that makes, I think, line art look attractive in certain styles. But then I decided to break up the lines sometimes. So if you see breaks in maybe the hair or some other areas where sometimes I do almost like a dash dot dash line, so it just kind of helps me break things up, just because I don't like the idea of pressuring myself to make line art look super pristine and super clean. So sometimes when I break the lines from larger forms or any line that needs to be like one swift motion, sometimes I break it up so that it kind of has the, like I said, line dashed line kind of look, so that it breaks it up for me, but also takes the pressure of kind of making sure that I have to do lines in one fell swoop. So I kind of just section it off to make it easier for myself. So usually when I work with alcohol markers, I actually pre-find all the colors that I need for the character so that I can have them at an easier reach for myself when I need to access them. So maybe in the future, if I work with alcohol markers a little bit more, I'll try my best to keep the codes of the, I guess, like the color codes on the caps and stuff, and I'll try to put them on screen if I ever use them. So hopefully I will be able to remember to do that for next time. But for now, I think the inking process went pretty well for the most part. I think the only area that I think I screwed up terribly is actually when I start to color with the alcohol markers, and I think I will show it because you'll see the slow realization when I realized I kind of screwed something up. But I'll try my best to kind of like remedy it by kind of trying to shift the color a little bit, but we'll get there when we get there. So for the character, I have not really drawn Charlotte at all. either in my sketchbook, digitally, or anything like that. But I've been really enjoying Charlotte as a character, just like from the story, having her on my team currently, and raising up her friendship level. So I really do like the color combination and the aesthetic that she has going. So that's kind of like the more or less the reason why I wanted to even draw Charlotte today. And I don't do a lot of illustrations where the main color tends to be more red. So her outfit has that kind of nice red, gold, black look to it. So I wanted to do that, but also gives me a little bit of practice with coloring someone with more of a cooler pink for their hair color rather than a warmer pink. So process-wise, I am moving along and trying my best to lighten up a fair amount of my sketch so that we don't have too much of this reddish pink residue everywhere. And then after that, we can move along to the actual coloring of Charlotte. So starting off with the larger one, I am placing kind of a more, I guess you can kind of consider it a mid-tone color for the skin first. So I've done this kind of every so often. I kind of go back and forth whether or not I add a mid-tone color first or the base tone color first, because sometimes it's easier to lay down the base tone color than visualize placing the shadows and then blending out. But for this one, because I wanted a smooth transition and I know that my color that I'm using currently, which is going to be my base tone, and it's kind of like the lightest color of the skin right now, is running super low. I think it's like I think it's 010 or something like that might be the code for the color. But basically, because I'm running low on it, I wanted to just do one pass of it. So I did majority of the blending with that color with the mid-tone already placed down to get a smooth transition. Then after that, now that I kind of have a base kind of laid out for me, I am going ahead and taking another kind of more orangey pink to do some of the deeper shadows, and then we can kind of proceed from there. So I can add more deeper pinks or deeper kind of like orangey peach colors, and then we can add purple and some blue if I wish to. So I'm just basically slowly layering up like bit by bit on the face, and I kind of treat the face as kind of like the trial run in terms of how I want to color everything for the piece. Because I don't really use alcohol markers too often, I definitely try to get back into the swing of things by working on the face. The face tends to be the place where I enjoy working on the most, but also it's the place that I know that if I screw it up terribly, I need to restart. So I like to tackle it and kind of get it out of the way first. I also forgot to add in Charlotte's other shoulder, and I forgot to color in the rest of the skin. So I'm gonna be kind of like floating back and forth between working on the face and like any other area that has exposed skin. But for the most part, I really do enjoy using alcohol markers, but I definitely take a lot more time working with them, alongside with the fact that it does have a lot of bleed through on this paper. Though I do like the look of markers or like alcohol markers on this paper. This paper is very like thin, but it's very smooth, and I feel like the blending capabilities of the markers are actually quite nice on it. But because the paper is super thin, sometimes whenever I put I guess like that protective sheet of plastic that the markers come with, if I saturate the page too much and I start to really put too much ink on the paper, sometimes it bleeds through and then pools a little bit. So I definitely have to take my time whenever I'm doing some areas, let's say like the eyes, where I'm layering up like 4 or 5 different colors to get my desired look and intensity that I want for the color. So that's like something just to be wary about, but for the most part, I work so slowly that the ink dries pretty much like instantly, so I don't really have to worry about that too often. But there are like occasionally sometimes that happens to me from time to time, I guess. I always have troubles coloring people who have eye colors that's like more of a greeny turquoise color. I feel like I always lean it too blue or too cool rather than giving it a little bit of that touch of warmth to give it more of a green kind of hue to the turquoise. So hopefully her eye color doesn't look too off. I also made the mistake that usually when I color in the skin, I don't mind if the kind of like base tone color or a bit of that skin tone bleeds into the bangs or any surrounding hair color. Now, because Charlotte's hair is pink, but it's more of a cooler pink, and me placing down the base tone skin color, which is kind of more of a very faint, more yellowy peach color if anything, whenever I started layering up some of the other kind of cooler pinks that I was trying to use, it actually made it look almost orangey or a very deep peach color. So I tried my best to pull out another pink, which is the one that I'm currently using, and trying to intensify that pink to be more vibrant, but also it's much more of a cooler pink. So hopefully it's matching a little bit more closely to Charlotte's actual hair color rather than making it too warm and too kind of peachy. But for shadows, so one thing I really love about using these alcohol markers, I can easily layer up a lot of my shadows with like purples or like kind of like faded blues or muted blues, I guess. So it's really easy for me to kind of like layer up almost in the same way that I work digitally. I just have to be a little bit smart with my, I guess, color choices, because sometimes I pick something a little bit too vibrant or I pick something that's a little bit too faint. And whenever you work with kind of more lighter colors and you're layering it on top of more darker colors, I guess, the way how some of the colors like blend and bleed sometimes makes it look like it's having like a, what is it called? Like a white halo around it, because it's just basically pushing the ink away from it, so it doesn't really blend super easily. So I try my best to match the value and the color to whatever shadow color I am trying to get. So oftentimes I will do a lot of layering of different blues and purples to kind of get that right kind of value or kind of correct. So the nice thing also about these markers in particular is that they do have a chisel tip and a brush tip. So the brush tip obviously makes it very easy for you to blend colors, but also kind of meld them in a way that's very soft. So I left the kind of more, I guess, like shinier part of her hat kind of more of the exposed page color, which is kind of like a slightly off-white color, but being able to flick the markers and having it go from more of a stronger color to a lighter color in one stroke kind of allows you to have that nice gradient or softer look if you're melding colors together, or if you want the color to kind of trail off from one another. So it makes it a little bit easier to do that, and it's harder to do it with a chisel tip or a bullet nib. So I definitely find it easier to use something like a brush tip to do a lot of things like the hair, or if I want softer gradients, it just makes it a lot easier. You can definitely get soft gradients using like a chisel tip or a bullet nib, but it just requires you to do a lot more blending out and transitioning colors by blending everything seamlessly, rather than having the ease of flicking and having that versatility of having a soft nib like the brush nib, I guess. So for this part, I'm actually layering up a bit of a few different colors. So I have a tendency of liking to add kind of warm and cooler colors together for places that have, I guess, like that are more or less like white in color, just because I like the color shift from warm to cool. So oftentimes I would start off with either a gray or kind of like neutral purpley blue base, and then we can shift to either browns that are very light or peach tones or pink, and kind of shift it to kind of give a little bit more vibrance to a white piece of clothing or white area. But then I decided to do that for majority of like Charlotte's hat where the ribbon is placed, just because it would be easier for me to place all the shadows like all over the entire object, and then take the darker color and kind of cover it to kind of clean it up. So I didn't have to kind of keep all my shadows contained into one area, but it also helps me visualize the entire object as well. I also don't know if you can see super clearly, but the way the markers dry on this particular paper is kind of interesting. It's not like entirely smooth, but it's not like a really distracting texture either. It's almost, I don't know how to explain it. It's like a hazy texture, but it's like not like entirely flat. But I definitely don't mind it, and I think because I enjoy blending on this paper with the alcohol markers, that it probably is definitely not like something that's gonna deter me from using the markers in the sketchbook anyways. Also, kind of like a small heads up, I think It might be tomorrow. I'm gonna try my best to film some traditional art, but kind of using the YouTube Shorts kind of format. So vertical, but also kind of very condensed to 1 minute, if anything, at the longest. And see if I can upload those for like every so often on a Sunday, because I did do like a trial run of doing shorts for YouTube with like my digital art, but it's kind of a pain to film sometimes because I don't want to film with my webcam and then film with my phone kind of like separately for 2 angles, because whenever I film with my webcam, it's already kind of in my face, because more or less when I film with my webcam, it's the same view that I have in real life. So for the most part, what you guys see on camera right here is kind of like my view of what I see while I'm working on the piece. But if I have my webcam facing one thing and then I have to get my phone to face another angle, I'm just like really cluttering the area around my face that I can see my paper. So I'm hopefully going to be doing some, I guess, like shorts that are not going to be exactly for future videos, if anything. I think there will be a few that I can record both at the same time, but for the most part, I think I will keep it as kind of like standalone little short videos. So a lot of those pieces that you see for the shorts will not be future videos. So that's probably just how I'm going to do it. I also just find it easier to film that way. But for this one in particular, I think I will have a shorts coming out tomorrow, I guess, of this particular piece, just to kind of do a quick trial run. And then I think I'll also post it onto like other social media, probably just like Instagram or something. But I'm gonna do a little bit of trial runs because oftentimes when I work on stuff that's traditional, I don't have the, I guess, like the foresight to be like, hey, you're gonna film this for a video, then edit it down in a nice manner. So shorts kind of makes it a little bit easier, just because I will only have to film kind of like chunks of the process rather than the entirety of a process. So hopefully it'll be a little bit easier to show off some other spreads in my sketchbook, or some other things that I feel like I would like to show that isn't maybe suitable for a full-length video. But also, I don't think I really talked about this. So oftentimes whenever I am doing spreads like this in my sketchbook and I want to include text, I usually go to 1001fonts.com and kind of, you know, filter through whatever they have for fonts available and kind of figure out what I think will fit the aesthetic for the kind of spread, or kind of like, if you look at like the kerning of like letters or like the letter spacing and stuff, sometimes I need a little bit of help in terms of how I want to format it, or just even like the style and look or aesthetic of the font. So for this one, I definitely wanted something a little bit more newspaper-like, but I decided to switch the colors to be similar to her, I guess, her camera aesthetic. So I kind of did that dark grayish, I guess, grayish black color, kind of more neutral, and then I did another stripe, and then we filled it in kind of with that cream color or that yellow color, and I think it looks kind of cute. It also helps to take up some space on the spread without needing to fill it up with either a pattern, some color blocking, a background, or another character. I just think that text kind of adds that little flair sometimes that I want to have on a kind of sketchbook spread, just because sometimes I overload the sketchbook spread with too many attempts at putting like faces or cramming like different elements relating to the character. Also, we are approaching the part where I realized that I screwed up the coloring because the stripes did not match up. So the bottom portion of her hat is actually gold, and I was supposed to alternate gold to black, gold and black, so kind of alternating in that way. So I screwed it up by putting black at the very bottom. So I tried my best to overload the page with a lot of ink to kind of flush out that black color. And right now I kind of flushed it to the point where it's not great, but it's a little bit less noticeable than having it be straight black. And I think I'll try my best to buffer out a little bit of the ink in the hair a little bit later. But for now, I kind of left it because, like I mentioned, this paper is super thin. So if I end up kind of oversaturating the paper with too much ink, it kind of pulls up and it might spread everywhere else. So I needed to take a little bit of a break, and by doing so I decided to work on the upper portion of her hat, and I wanted to have a little bit of blue here as well, kind of like looking like as if it's bouncing off the light from the other drawing, which has that more of that blue color from her ribbon in the white area. But yeah, if you guys have any characters you would like me to draw from Genshin Impact, Honkai Star Rail, any of the fandoms that I'm currently in, and you would like to see some kind of like alcohol marker spread, do let me know, because I would like to continue to use alcohol markers in the sketchbook probably, because I don't really use them super often, and I feel like the only times I do is either I use it on Bristol board, which feels a little bit too high-end and a little bit too pristine for me to want to work on it on something large like that, and a little bit more pricier. So I would like to kind of like keep it similar to how I do my sketchbook spreads, and just do like a compilation or a little page spread of whichever character. I'm thinking of like what other color combinations I haven't really done. I would like to do one that maybe is more purple focused, so maybe Chi-Chi or Mona. I guess Mona's a little bit purpley blue. Keqing maybe. What other color combinations have I not done? Maybe something more yellowy as well. So I'll probably look into some of the color palettes that I haven't done before, and I would like to do that as well for some of my water-based marker spreads too. But I think I rambled long enough. I think this is the end of the little page of me drawing Charlotte from Genshin Impact with alcohol markers. So hopefully you guys like the result of it, and hopefully in the future, probably for other Monday videos, I'll do a few more with alcohol markers again. And yeah, I just really want to play around with the markers since I do have them at my disposal. So hopefully in the future, I will do a few more. Also, this is like the result of the bleed through, which is almost like a 1-to-1 in terms of the intensity of the color, just because of how much I layer up. So I'll probably cover these up with some post-it notes and doodle all over them. So in the meantime, I guess I will see you guys next time in the next video on Monday, or the shorts on Sunday. So yeah, I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye!